Hello everyone, this is Beardo coming at you with this week's Minutia Minute. It's been a while. I apologize for the poor quality of this video. Since it has been a while, I really didn't feel like, usually I do a little bit more of a production with these things, put my comics in the back and all that stuff. Really wasn't in the mood to do that. I just kind of wanted to talk comics because it's been quite a while. I wanted to share with you the daunting task I'm in right now. In the last 6 months or so since my last video, I've changed departments, I've gotten promoted, I've just had a lot of different stuff going on. I completely reorganized my entire comic book collection, which took about a month to get done, which my girlfriend was very patient during, so thank you for being patient and letting me take over literally the entire living room with piles and piles of comics. But yeah, so long story short, I've been really busy, and not only am I behind on my YouTube duties, as you all well know, I'm even more behind on my comics. So this is what I want to share with you guys. I don't know if you can see this. Maybe you can. Yeah, kind of can. So that right there, that's a long box of comics. It's about 3/4 of the way full. The only reason it's 3/4 full is because I have a pile of comics out in the other room that I kind of had been working my way through as of yesterday. And those are all books that I'm behind on. They're all books that either they're issues I haven't read at all, or they're issues that I've read like the first couple, and I just put them back in there just to reread and refresh my memory because it's been so long since I've gotten to them. So lots and lots of comic books on the horizon for me right now. I'm actually on vacation for a week, and the main thing I wanted to do is just a staycation, and the thing I'm most excited about doing is going through my comic books and reading through and catching up. That's how far behind I am, which is sad. Most people are excited because they're going to Rio in the middle of winter. I'm excited to stay home, have a cup of coffee, and catch up on Earth 2 and Batman and all that stuff. So for a little while, I want to do some videos about the books I've been reading lately because I've been far enough removed from what's going on in comics that a lot of this stuff is just like, blasting me. Like stuff I just had no idea was coming, or probably something that you guys heard about 3 months before the book even shipped, but I just had no idea what was going on because I've been so busy. And so I've been reading through some of these books, and some of them have been unexpectedly great, and some of them have been unexpectedly disappointing, and I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts and hopefully get your guys' opinion on some of these books. I know it's really belated, so I don't know if any of you guys are going to want to watch these videos because it's about stuff that happened, who knows how long. It'll be a range, but there's definitely going to be some older books I talk about. But since I haven't read them, I haven't been able to watch your guys' videos to know what you think of them, so this is my way of hoping that you'll place a comment below and just let me know what you're kind of thinking and see if we're on the same page and just kind of help me catch up. So anyway, that's kind of the intent of the Minutia Minute for today and probably future Minutia Minutes. Just kind of going through what I've been reading and seeing what you guys think. So I hope you enjoy it. The book I want to talk about today is not actually that old a book. So after I said I'll be reading all these old books, this actually only came out a month ago. Batman is one of the characters that no matter how busy I am, I always stay relatively caught up with. But I gotta say that it's been hard lately because Batman, honestly, isn't very good right now. Like, I'm sorry, but like, even Capullo's art has slipped a little bit. And I think part of it is the coloring. Like, I feel like they're going for this kind of bright, sort of almost like taking 60s colors back for their purposes. Like, they're not trying to be like, like trying to do 60s coloring, but they're kind of trying to take that idea and make it something new. And for me, at least, it's not really working. And so I've been kind of trudging through those, to be honest. Like, I'll read them every month, and it just doesn't quite seem to be clicking. I actually read through all of year 0 up to this point, just to see if maybe if I read them all together, it'd be better. And there were a couple of moments that kind of got my blood pumping, but for the most part, they really didn't. So I was really holding out hope that Gothtopia, which is one of the books, or one of the stories in this large anthology-size issue, was going to be really exciting, because I really liked the idea. It kind of reminded me of Thrill Killer, where it's sort of this, completely turning the Batman character on his head. and seeing kind of how that would play out and what that would be like. I thought that that might be kind of an interesting premise. So I was really excited because this is the first part of that story, and plus I like anthology issues in general. I know a lot of you guys don't, but honestly, I would buy all my comic books like this if they came out like that, because I like having the story that I paid for, plus paying extra to just get a sample of other stuff and find out what I like, maybe find something new. You never know what's going to be beyond that sort of main story that you're excited for, and that's kind of what I love about anthologies. So when this was coming out, I was doubly excited because this is like the anthology of anthologies. Like, you don't have to worry about the binding breaking out here like on, the Giant Size X-Men #1. I mean, this is like trade paperback quality, really, really nice book. And I was absolutely pumped taking this off the shelf. And so I got home, added it to my collection because I was actually a little bit behind on Detective when this came out. And last night I sat down, I got caught up. I read through 26 through the issue that just came out yesterday. I read some of the Gothtopia tie-ins, which I'll talk about as well just a little bit towards the end here. And the second I opened this book, every page just got a little bit more disappointing than the last. I'm sorry to say. I'm really curious to know what you guys thought of Detective 27, because it just didn't quite do it for me. And I'm going to kind of walk through some of the stories and just hopefully make some sense out of what I'm thinking, and I would love to hear your thoughts as well. But overall, the stories just kind of didn't quite click. You start off with The Case of the Chemical Syndicate, which is written by Brad Meltzer, who I guess either you love him or you hate him. I loved Identity Crisis. I thought that was one of the greatest things. His run on Justice League, I didn't mind it, but I know that a lot of people didn't like it, or at least sort of retrospectively, it's kind of hated, I feel like. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. So he takes a stab at Batman here with Case of the Crime Syndicate, or excuse me, Case of the Chemical Syndicate, with art by Brian Hitch. And it's like, you open this book up, and I don't know quite what it is, but there's something about Brian Hitch's art in this that just doesn't quite click. It looks like it just says colors and letters by other people, so presumably he did his own inking on this. But ironically, I feel like the inking just kind of kills this artwork. It's just not quite as crisp as other Brian Hitch artwork I've seen. I'm not quite sure why. It just, something about it just didn't quite ring as I was really excited to see Brian Hitch do Batman, and it just was kind of meh. Like, it looked like Brian Hitch, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, for something about it just felt a little bit muddied, and I'm not quite sure why. I don't know if anybody else had that impression. It was very muted. Part of it is the coloring is very muted on it. But then you get this story that is what? It's the creation of the Joker, presumably. And, or I don't know. I'm still confused reading this because it's sort of the origin of the Joker. The guy gets, thrown into the acid, and he comes out at the end. Spoilers. And it's just like, didn't we just do this with, with Year Zero? So, like, why are we treading that territory again? And maybe I'm missing something. Maybe it's supposed to be something else. But if that's the case, you shouldn't have done it. You should have picked something else that would be less confusing. I'm a pretty big Batman fan. I feel like I should know if something else was going on here. But I feel like I'm just, like, lost reading it. It just was kind of like, it was meh. It just didn't kind of go anywhere. And then at the end, it's like, oh, so we're retreading 0 year already? Like, what? I don't get it. Anyway, so that was a tad confusing. Then you have, after that, Old School, which was kind of a fun concept, but I felt like it just got too meta for its own good. Like, it was trying really, really hard, and it doesn't really succeed in the way that it wants to. So you got Neil Adams doing all these different versions of Batman, which is, it's cool to see some of the old school. We got some Bob Kane, we've got some Dick Sprang, we've got probably Carmine Infantino, although actually maybe they kind of overlooked him. And then you get the classic, the classic Neil Adams, which turns into this dark sort of almost, Frank Miller coloring as we get further in. And all throughout this time, it's like they keep using the same, like, well, I read your, why did you tell me what your plan was out loud? This is in like the old sort of campy Batman books, where, the Penguin, I think, knows that, Batman's going to do something because he turns around and just kind of says it. And, it's really funny, tongue in cheek, and you're like, haha. And then you go on, and then it's in a thought bubble because, as comic books evolved, they went from just saying what they were going to do to thinking what they were going to do. But then at that point, whoever was facing off when it was a thought bubble is like, well, I just read it right over there, and like points at the thought bubble. Like, well, since it's in the comic book page, I can read it. And it's like, it broke the fourth wall to a point that it stopped making sense, if that makes any sense. And it just kind of goes downhill from there. And it just sort of, it's trying to talk about evolving to stay relevant. Batman keeps shedding his costume and getting new costumes. And, eventually he hangs out with his fans. And that's the end. And it was just like, it was so heavy-handed. And that's all I have to say about it. It was heavy-handed and it was annoying. I hated that story more than anything. And I mean, I like Neil Adams, and he's obviously, has a credible history of drawing Batman, but to be honest, I'm just going to say it, Neil Adams is past his prime now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's cool to see him, but at the same time, like, if they are going to use him, they should use him in his kind of his classic style. Like, having him do all these different styles, it just was kind of like, okay, we're trying too hard. At least that was my reaction. Next we get a poster by Jock, which, I mean, come on. Jock's awesome always. So that was nice. That kind of cleansed my palate for the next story, this one was a fairly decent one. This is sort of old Bruce Wayne. It's called Better Days. Art by Ian Bertram, which I did very much enjoy the artwork on this. But, it's kind of old Batman, and it's like, you got a kind of hilarious picture of Batman here. It's kind of like, it's like the Disney version of Dark Knight Returns almost. It's like Up. It's like the old guy from Up meets Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns Batman or something. It's just really bizarre. But I did enjoy the artwork, and I thought that it was kind of a nice idea. But again, it just felt like such a retread because basically you've got old Batman. He hasn't lost his family. He still has his family. That's like the big difference between this and, say, like the Dark Knight Returns. So, while his family goes out and fights crime, Batman doesn't need to go out there, but then he does go out there, and it's kind of like happy Dark Knight Returns, where it's like, I really thrill at the adventure, and, my bones don't want to work for me, right? It's kind of all these sort of Frank Miller-esque lines, but done with kind of a happy twist to them. It was just kind of like, again, it just felt like such a retread. It was really pretty pointless, which is, I think, the theme of Detective Comics 27. Just there's a lot of kind of just stories that are just kind of pointless. I don't know. Anyway, next we get one of my favorite stories from this. It's only a few pages. It's called Rain, story and art by Francisco Francavilla. That alone is enough to make it one of the better stories in this book because Francavilla's Batman it's so good. It just really is absolutely incredible. It's just got that Mazzucchelli kind of thing going on, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. And it's a very simple story, but it's nice. The thing I really liked about this is that from a New 52 standpoint, it connects that last arc that Scott Snyder did in Detective Comics before it reset to issue 1, and it ties it in to the New 52 because you have the appearance of James Jr. at the very end, which really made my day. I enjoyed that one, but I mean, we're talking 4 pages, very short, nothing too fancy. And then, of course, right when they're starting to get me, I'm like, oh, this is getting better. They hit me with another poster, and those of you who have seen my my modern age history of Batman, I am not a fan of Kelly Jones's artwork. I just cannot stand it. It is foul, and it's like, this is kind of not coming through very well because I have really bad lighting here, but it's like exactly the same as 1995. Like, it literally is no different whatsoever. It's exactly the same artwork. It was kind of mind-blowing. I wonder almost if this is like an old piece of artwork that they just put in here. I actually, as I'm looking at it, that could be the case, because it's just so remarkable. He's never drawn Robin well. Look at Robin. He just looks ridiculous. And it's like, why would you do such a poor job with Robin? I mean, you just hate the guy. I mean, look how he does Bane. I mean, like, ridiculous with the muscles. And, I mean, the inking on his work. I mean, you have to appreciate the inking, because it really brings a lot out of his pencils, I think. I just hate his pencils, so it doesn't help any. But then he does Robin. It's just kind of like chicken scratch. I don't get it. Anyway, so that kind of annoyed me. And then we get into, this is a Phantom Stranger story with some Batman. I can't really remember. All I remember is, sorry, I don't even remember this one. All I remember is it has Gilliam March doing the artwork, which does not fit the story. That was the main thing. I think that was the main problem I had with it. Was part of it is, I mean, you can kind of see it on this page, like Gilliam March. Is it Gilliam? I hope I'm saying that right. Anyway, his artwork is good, but it almost is like stylized and messy to the point of being visually confusing. Like, it doesn't have that J.H. Williams III sort of sophistication. It's kind of a jumbled mess. And the way they were telling the story, I didn't feel like Gilliam March, his style of artwork really particularly fit. So there's that. It was okay. Didn't really do it for me. The thing that made me happy was it was in memory of Bill Finger, who is, of course, the true creator of Batman. I'll just go out and be controversial and say it. Let's see. And then next we have Gothtopia. I'm actually going to come back to this one because that's obviously the big thing that's been going on with Batman other than year one right now. So I'll talk about that kind of at the very end, because that's been the main thing I've been working on reading through as far as Batman goes lately. And then the last story, actually, I really enjoyed, even though it wasn't, again, the story wasn't really anything special. It's kind of something we've seen many different sort of versions of before. But it was a nice way to tie in so the Detective Comics 27 aspect, and DC loves their numbers. 52, 27, you know. But you got Sean Murphy doing wonderful artwork, as always. I mean, Sean Murphy is one of the great, great artists out there. And you get to see basically the Batman of the future and how Bruce Wayne, over time, developed a system, a 27-year system where you'd work for 25 years and then you spend 2 years training your successor, and there would always be a Batman. Really pretty darn enjoyable. I like this story a lot. It's honestly Scott Snyder's best Batman writing since basically since year zero kicked off, because like I said, I haven't really been enjoying that lately. My personal favorite moment was the Pacific Rim moment at the end there, when you have the giant Batman fighting the giant owl. That totally made my day. So, like, bizarrely un-Batman-like, yet just very appropriate and very enjoyable. And yeah, overall, very enjoyable story. It was a nice way to round it out, and of course, you finish with Never the End. So anyway, like I said, really a big mixed bag for this, and I mean, that's obviously the danger of anthologies, and why I know most of you guys don't like anthologies, even though, you know, I do. I like the randomness. It's just sometimes you get pissed off and disappointed, like with a $7.99 issue Detective Comics, where you have a great 4-page story from Frank Avila. You have the current storyline going on in Detective Comics, Gothtopia, and then you've got a nice little sort of send-off from Scott Snyder, and then the other 50 pages or so is kind of just bunk. So anyway, pretty disappointed in this. Now that I said I'm disappointed in that, I do want to talk a little bit about Gothtopia. I'm a little on the fence with this one, so this is another one where I need you guys' help. I have read all the tie-ins to this. I was actually really excited when I didn't know this was coming. I just saw the Gothtopia banner one day, and I think this was the issue I saw White Batgirl, and I saw Gothtopia, and then, you know, you read the first page, and it kind of explains the whole premise, which is, where is it? Gotham City, America's safest city, America's happiest city, an almost completely crime-free utopia where dreams come true and everyone leads the life they want to lead. A place of sunny skies, safe streets, gleaming skyscrapers, and brightly costumed heroes. This is Gotham City. This has always been Gotham City. And if you want to survive, you have to believe. Like, that just hooked my imagination. I love when, you take Batman and you throw him on his head. He's a kind of a knight in shining white armor in this. And you've got Catbird, who is Catwoman / Robin, and they're a couple, and they're like they're horny for each other on the streets, which is really socially awkward because you have these criminals getting away and they're just like making out, and then they're like, oh yeah, we should go catch this bad guy. It's kind of hilarious. But I really, really dug that they were gonna kind of take this off in this new direction and kind of go for broke. There's no explanation as to why until you get further on. You find out exactly what this Gothtopia really is. But it kind of reminded me of like Thrill Killer, where it's like you've got this completely upside down idea of sort of the Batman mythos, and you just throw it at it like it's an Elseworlds almost. I mean, Thrill Killer obviously was an Elseworlds. This is not, but it struck me as a great opportunity to do kind of an Elseworlds tale and then kind of bring it back through, whatever silly means you needed to at the end. And so I was just really pumped at this alternate universe, and I'm enjoying it. I think that, the mechanism, I don't know if I should spoil this because we're getting into spoiler territory and this isn't that old. Well, I'm going to spoil it. So, spoiler alert, Gothtopia is actually being brought on by the Scarecrow, who is basically making everybody docile and completely serene, and everybody's basically group hallucinating Gothtopia, and then Scarecrow will go out at night and conduct pure fear experiments where, it's more, more fear than you could ever express, but it's because they're in the most serene state they could possibly be in before he hits them with the gas, kind of thing. Pretty basic explanation for the whole idea of having Gothtopia. My big disappointment with this is that it doesn't last very long. I mean, even by the end of the first issue, I mean, it's part 1 of 3, so it's not going to last very long, but by the end of the first issue, Batman's come to his senses. Like, we see the transition where it's like he's walking in Gothtopia, and then now he's walking in regular Gotham. You see he's the regular Batman, and nothing has changed. There's just this hallucination, and then it kind of becomes about peeling back the onion. But to me, peeling back the onion wasn't really what was making the story exciting. What was making the story exciting was exploring this world of Gothtopia and getting to see the characters. And so I purposely picked up tie-ins. I don't always go out of my way to pick up even Batman tie-ins. I really don't go too crazy. But I picked these up because I wanted to just explore that world more. Excuse me. And I mean, there was some nice stuff in here, don't get me wrong. It was fun to see, but it was just such a squandered opportunity. Like, I know when John Layman first kicked off with his Detective Comics run, he said he was going to bring the detective back to Detective Comics, and Batman was going to be methodical and solving crimes. In this, he is solving a crime, like he's figuring out the details of how Gothtopia came to be, and he's acting out against it. But that he's so busy figuring it out that you don't get to just kind of enjoy the moment, which was disappointing. So, if you do check out Gothtopia, I do recommend taking a look at a couple of the books. I did enjoy Batgirl, and I did enjoy Catwoman, which I think this one may have been I can't remember if this is a two-parter. I think this might be a two-parter, and the Batgirl one is just a single standalone issue. But if you want to get into Gothtopia a little bit deeper, I do recommend those 2 books. Don't bother with Batwing. I thought it was pointless. I know that there was a tie-in for it in Birds of Prey as well in issue 27, but it literally was like one line at the end of the book, so don't bother picking that up. And obviously, you can follow it in this month's issue of Detective Comics as well, where, I mean, it's all rounding out very nicely. It's a great idea for a story. I just wish they would take it further, and I really hope that they revisit this idea down the road. This is the kind of story that I feel like they're really squandering themselves. I mean, this is could be a great 6-issue series where, you spend 4 issues, like you spend let's say you spend 2 issues just enjoying Gothtopia and learning about that alternate universe, and then And you know, you got to have that character who knows something's up. And I just think it shouldn't have been Batman. It should have been someone else, so that someone kind of in the background, whereas Batman is completely sucked in. And we just get to enjoy the quirkiness of this strange Gothtopia world. And then by issue 3, cracks start to form, and you don't really see the story beginning to resolve until like issue 4 or 5, and you wrap it up in issue 6. Like, I think that would have been great. Unfortunately, they're just shuttling right along, so kind of disappointed in that. But overall, I like this. I do like this better than Year Zero right now. We'll see how Dark City wraps up. But for now, check it out. I think it's worth it. Let me know what you think below. And that's kind of the last of my thoughts on Detective Comics right now and Batman in general. So if you didn't pick up Detective Comics 27, do you pick this one up? I don't know. I really don't know if I should recommend this book or not. I think for the hardcore Batman fan, you got to pick it up. It's obviously a milestone. But just be prepared that there's just some pages you're not going to be as crazy about. Honestly, if you want a really fulfilling experience, buy the book. Read Francisco Francavilla. Read Scott Snyder. Obviously read John Layman. And then just leave the other 3, and it'll be like you got the most perfect book ever that was just a little expensive. So anyway, there you go. Those are my thoughts on Detective 27. Let me know what you think, and I hope you enjoyed this video, even though obviously it's a little late to be talking about a book that came out a month ago. So, all right, see you guys.